The vice presidential debate concluded just moments ago. Governor Walz against J.D. Vance. Let me just show you what I thought was the biggest moment of the evening, and it was the final moment. I was waiting. When are they going to talk about democracy? When are they going to talk about January 6th? When are they going to talk about the fact that Donald Trump still claims he won in 2020 when he lost? And the question was the last question before the closing statements by the parties. And let me just show you what went down. Let's play it.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously,
that was a damning non-answer, and I think that moment right there is what people will be talking about. It's certainly what we're talking about. Look, I thought that Governor Walz started off shaky. He started off nervous. He got a question on foreign policy about Iran. Didn't think his answer was that great. I didn't think J.D. Vance's was that great. J.D. Vance lied the entire time, but he's a slick talker, J.D. Vance. Exactly what we said in the pre-show. Everything out of his mouth was a lie. CBS wasn't fact-checking, but regardless, I thought the moderators were whatever. But you know, this is the arena. This is the big stage right here. So if you're in a position like that and you're Governor Walz and CBS isn't fact-checking, we don't in the pro-democracy community blame the moderators or this and that. You got to be on your game and you got to be doing the fact-check. You got to be calling this stuff out. When J.D. Vance is up there saying that Donald Trump expanded the Affordable Care Act by trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, you got to say, what are you talking about? You're saying you're trying to expand something by trying to revoke it. And but for John McCain, it would have been revoked and people would be dying right now for being taken off of the Affordable Care Act. So I thought at the beginning, really even through the commercial break, I thought that J.D. Vance was winning the debate in the sense of Governor Walz was not pushing back. And I was concerned about it. I was like, come on, you got any? And Governor Walz previously said that he gets nervous at debates, and he seemed nervous. He seemed a little nervous. He seemed a little off his game. I thought he gave some good answers, but I thought his defense of the great economy under Vice President Kamala Harris, I don't think he was defending the record the way he needed to. I'm just giving you, you may not like what I'm saying. I'm just giving you my honest feedback to what I was observing. So through the first commercial break, I wasn't loving it. I thought his answers were fine, but J.D. Vance was getting away with all of the lies, and I was getting frustrated here. Then I think we get back post-commercial. I think that Governor Walz took a deep breath. I would say if you were kind of counting the rounds, J.D. Vance would be up a round or two if this was a boxing match leading up to the first commercial break. The commercial break starts, and then I think Governor Walz gets his groove back. He's talking about the types of issues that he's more familiar with as a governor of a state with successful healthcare and successful programs that deliver for the American people. Then I started thinking, all right, this is starting to look more even, started to feel like a draw. And then there was that last final moment. I think a final moment that was historic. To me, it defined the entire debate where you had, and that's why these are the issues that need to be talked about all of the time, because how are we in 2024 in a situation where the guy who lost in 2020 is claiming in 2024 that he won? It's ridiculous. And what Vice President Kamala Harris was able to do as a skilled prosecutor is, regardless of what the questions were, she was able to frame it back and throw it back to Donald Trump to highlight his weaknesses. And she did it in a very clear, concise, lawyerly, top prosecutor way. That's why she's a great prosecutor, one of the best ever, and, you know, a great debater. Governor Walz was not doing that, but then he had that moment at the end where, you know, in a very just kind of, two guys at the bar talking in kind of the folksy way that he talks, goes, hey, let me ask you, Do you think that Donald Trump still won in 2020? Is that what you're still saying right now? Let's play that moment again, because I think that's the most important moment. Here, play it.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously.
And one of the things I thought, though, that was going on, but, Governor Walz is a nice guy, and he was treating J.D. Vance as a good faith actor when he's not a good faith actor. And there should have been more moments like that at the end, I thought. But for me, I don't know what you thought at home. I thought that changed the dynamic, and the moment that sticks out to me, and otherwise, I thought J.D. Vance leading at first. I thought it evened out towards the second half. And then I thought at the end right there, that was a moment that defines everything right there. Let me show you what I think is another really important clip. Let's play it, Salty.
Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
That's why that question needs to be asked first. I don't know how anything is more important than the fundamental foundation of the existence of our country. And I get maybe the CBS moderators were like, well, we'll start on current events. This is what's happening in Iran today. And then we'll build towards the economy. Then we'll get a little slower with some, kitchen sink issues that are, by the way, are very, very important. And then we'll finish strong by talking about the insurrection. So we'll try to keep people's attention throughout. But look, the reality is that a lot of people will stop watching these things. Unfortunately, I think after, the first 10, 15 minutes, there's a lot of people who are saying, look, vice presidential debates don't matter. Look, Brett and Jordy may disagree with me. When people go, oh, this doesn't matter. Everything matters right now. Okay. In my view, everything matters. Every single day, politics, like I think football is a game of inches. Okay. Anything that could impact any one undecided voter in a close election, to me, that matters. I think that people watching see, if you're following this, you see J.D. Vance, a slick talker, that may appeal to you. Let's be realistic. Governor Walz looked nervous. That may initially make you feel what's going on here, and that's how I was feeling when I was watching it, which I was talking about on Patreon. So I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods and be like, oh man, Governor Walz crushed it the whole time. No, I thought the first half, I was pretty critical of, I thought, his debate performance at the very beginning of it. And it progressed where he got more comfortable. But by the way, my own view, he should have been more comfortable at the front, but that's just me, whatever. He got more comfortable as it developed. Then I felt, okay, this thing feels even and it feels like a tie. Then at the end, Governor Walz reached into his back pocket, whatever the expression is, and I think, really unleashed at a moment that was so necessary. And that, to me, is the clip that ultimately defines this entire debate right here. And again, what I would have done differently if I'm Governor Walz is, regardless of what the question is, I would just pivot to, why isn't Mike Pence here, everybody? Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the question. they say the question was about Iran, right? Thanks for the question about Iran. I want to answer that in a second. I want to ask everybody watching, where's Mike Pence right now? Why is it that Donald Trump has to have JD Vance? JD Vance and I are going to have a very spirited debate this evening, but I think we need to first ask, why is Mike Pence not here? And why is Mike Pence not endorsed? Start with that. Come on. It's why are we playing Mr. Nice Guy here? Start with that, then answer the question. More stuff like that I would have liked to have seen. But, look, where I net out is that you could say it was a tie. I think Governor Walz won it at the end with that answer. I think the final statement of J.D. Vance refusing to say Donald Trump lost in 2020, that's what's going to stick out with everybody. I'm going to toss it over to Brett and Jordy. I'm going to jump because I'm going to do a hot take, a summary of the debate with Salty right now that we're going to post on this channel. Thank you to all of our patrons. It was great having you join us for the watch party. We're back now. We're free here on YouTube. Great experience watching this with everybody. But I feel much better at the end of it. I was worried in those first 15, 20 minutes, if I'm being completely blunt, and you come here for the truth, and that's what you get here. Just me sharing my opinion.
Well, everyone appreciates your opinion, Ben. And I think, the most important thing, our North Star here at the MeidasTouch Network and everything we do is the truth. We try to figure out what the truth is in this situation. And if somebody's blatantly lying about something, we call them out. It doesn't matter, a political party. It really doesn't matter to us. Now, in our current political climate, I will say that there is one party that tends to lie about everything all the time, like blatant lies. And there tends to be a candidate who is a danger to democracy, danger to the United States of America in an unprecedented way. And so, yes, that individual who is such a threat, that individual who spouts dozens, if not hundreds, maybe even thousands of lies every single day, that individual is going to be called out excessively, especially when they pose such a danger to our world. But whenever there is any sort of event like this or any of our coverage, it's always important to us to try to find the truth. And that could be, there are gray areas occasionally, sometimes there aren't. But with an event like this, I think one of the things that you all have come to appreciate with MeidasTouch is that we'll give you our honest opinion, like Ben just did. And I would agree with Ben that at the beginning of that debate, I think Tim Walz came out there. I think he was nervous. He had said he was nervous in reports to CNN earlier in the week. I wasn't sure if he was trying to downplay expectations, but he seemed legitimately nervous over there. And JD Vance has been on the TV circuit a whole lot. And so I think he was quicker to be on his feet in the beginning. So I think in the beginning, Tim Walz missed a lot of opportunities with JD Vance, but I think pretty quickly, Walz found his footing, and he had some really great answers. And it was almost like a ping pong game or a tennis game, a rally where there would be a question that would kind of be a bit tougher for JD Vance, right? And JD Vance wouldn't look so great in that question, and Walz would look great. Then there'd be vice versa, right? Where Walz would get a question where maybe not as favorable to him, where he wouldn't look as great, but Vance would come off looking better. And Vance, by the way, spewed so many lies the whole time. Now, here's something that I want to ask the YouTube audience as well. We are live with you, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because I think Tim Walz, I think he's a good guy, right? You see Tim Walz, you see him on all the shows, you see him with his dogs, you see him with his family, you see him in his speeches. He seems like a good-hearted person who cares about people and doesn't like to, be confrontational in that way. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Did you think that Walz should have been more aggressive, more combative against somebody like JD Vance? Or do you think his kind of cordial outlook towards JD Vance, do you think that was more of the right way to go? I'll tell you my opinion. There were some parts where I appreciated it because it felt a little like, kind of a normal debate, if that makes sense, where two people are exchanging ideas. But there were some parts of me that were saying, maybe I wish he threw a little more punches and was a bit more aggressive, because let's face it, JD Vance is not a normal politician. He's not a normal Republican. And I think that was sort of bottled up in a way, but I think that really came out at the end. And I think using his kind of Midwestern charm, in his nice way, I think at the end, I think Tim Walz staying true to himself, I think really landed what was like the fatal blow against JD Vance by making JD Vance ask the most simple of questions. Did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? Did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? And guess what happened? JD Vance had no answer. He refused to answer the question. And Tim Walz had his back against the wall, had Vance's back against the wall in that moment. To me, that was the defining moment of the debate right there. And I want to say this because I heard Ben say, a lot of people were probably tuned out of the debate at the end and probably weren't watching. I think that's a very fair point, and I think it's true. I think it's very true. However, I think we need to remember how people are consuming these things. There's certainly going to be tens of millions of people who watch the debate live. I would argue there are going to be tens, if not hundreds of millions more who are now consuming this debate via the clips that are posted like on our social media accounts and like on the social media accounts of Asen on Twitter, our senior digital editor. And that moment is already going viral. I already see that moment because it is so impactful. Salty, do we have that clip by any chance? If we have it, let's play it.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously.
Boom.
Damning non-answer. That right there, I think, defined the candidates. And by the way, this is something I said. We did our watch party tonight over on patreon.com/MeidasTouch. It was so much fun. I encourage you all to go join us there, one of the paid tiers, to help keep this network going. And we do fun things like the watch party, and we do monthly Q&As, and we have exclusive content, and it's so much fun. We love our patrons over there. But one of the things I was saying while we were over there at Patreon, where was I even going with the story? I lost my train.
Well, let me just say this, Brett, because I just want to add to what we're talking about here. I want to be very clear.
I got my point.
And very blunt. Okay, one sec. Walz won this debate. Like when we were watching, maybe it was 60-40 Vance. Walz, again, saying what we discussed in the pre-show, staying true to himself, being his authentic self. I wanted him to be more aggressive throughout the debate, but you know what? It's simply not him. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to win on his merits. He's going to win on his values. And he found his chance to get in his punch, and he landed it at the end. He scored using the coach metaphor, he scored a touchdown there with the damning non-answer line. That's going to be what is played back every single hour and every single news show. I hope it is, because that is the defining moment of this debate. Walz won this by staying true to himself, and Vance throughout the night, yeah, smart. But you know what? Arrogant and a liar. And he's so good at being an arrogant liar. You know what that comes across as? Just a very insincere person. And I believe, especially when his mic got cut off, that's going to be another moment, right? That plays over and over again in the eyes of,
especially because it was about him lying about, it was continuing to lie about the Haitian migrants. And he was so appalled that they would dare not even like fact check him, but give these folks the dignity who are here illegally to have the truth be told about them and not have them be defamed on their network. It was the bare minimum, quite frankly, that CBS could do. And Vance got so up in arms about it, as did Donald Trump. But Jordy, I think your analysis there was astute. And one of the things that we were in our little text chats, as our iMessage chats, as we were watching the debate, we're like screaming is, when are they going to ask about the certification of the election? When are they going to ask about January 6th? Because don't get me wrong, policy is important. Policy needs to be discussed, right? I would argue policy is much more important at a presidential debate, right? And there we had Donald Trump ranting and raving like a lunatic about Haitians eating dogs and cats, spreading that lie. But that's where you want to hear policy, right? Vice presidents, of course, they need to be concerned about policy if they step into the role. But let's remember what the job of a vice president is, right? The job of a vice president is to be there, basically to be a body, quite frankly, not to be like a little morbid about it, basically to be there in case something were to happen to the president so that they could step in and be ready on day one. That's one of their things right there. The other, they are there to preside over the Senate and be the tie-breaking vote. Another important thing, right? These are things that, are important. I think all questions should be asked about. The most important, in my opinion, and by the way, I never would have probably said this in 2016 or 2012 or 2008 or go back because it was never an issue. But the most important question you could ask a vice presidential candidate about in 2024 is what they will do about the certification of the election if their candidate loses the election, if their president loses the election. That is the ultimate test. It's basically the one test that you could have if you're going for the job as vice president. And J.D. Vance stood on that stage and practically admitted that he would abdicate his constitutional responsibility to certify an election that Donald Trump lost. That non-answer that was called out by Tim Walz, that non-answer of J.D. Vance's speaks volumes. And to me, no matter what I think this about immigration or that about immigration or this about taxes, to me, that's the biggest thing that we heard tonight. That J.D. Vance admitted in front of millions of people that he would, or I guess he didn't answer, but he admitted by omission that he would refuse to say whether or not Donald Trump won 2020 and refuse to say whether he would certify another election. That right there should be chilling. That right there is the message that I think you all should be bringing up with your family and friends. Like, listen, our whole thing, right? We could disagree on policies, right? Inflation is a big deal, right? We all want inflation to come down. The inflation was caused, by the way, by Donald Trump's mishandling of a pandemic that screwed with our supply chains. And Donald Trump printed money like there was no tomorrow, and it led to where we were. I mean, you can't talk about inflation without speaking about that. Inflation is also at its lowest level in years now, and it's coming down, and we're starting to experience some deflation. In fact, these are the kinds of things, quite frankly, that I wish Tim Walz was a slightly bit more effective of saying. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but you know what I'm saying, right? All of these have answers to them, right? But the one thing that we can't, the one thing that isn't up for debate, and this is exactly what Tim Walz said, the one thing that is not up for debate in our country is what you do after someone wins or loses an election. That's not for debate. Not for debate. And I, quite frankly, and I hope you feel the same, I am sick and I am tired of people like J.D. Vance. I am sick and I am tired of people like Donald Trump and these MAGA Republicans out there. I'm sick and tired of them trying to make issues that are not debatable debates. Accepting the result of an election, not a debate. Do your court cases. You lose, okay? You lose your court cases, accept the results. That's all we ask in this democracy. It's the bedrock of the United States of America. And if you can't accept that, that is fundamentally un-American, and you belong nowhere near a position of power. None. I don't care if you're a local councilman or if you're president of the United States. You do not belong in our government if you cannot abide by those beliefs. There are other issues too. And we see it kind of happen a lot, right? Where objective facts are viewed as these debatable situations, right? Are the Haitian migrants there legally? They are. They're there legally. That's not a debate. J.D. Vance wants to turn that into a debate. Climate change. Is it a hoax or is it real? Is it no, it's not a debate. These are facts. And by the way, these are facts that like every other country agrees on. They don't have disagreements around whether these things are real or not real. They have disagreements on how are we going to solve this issue. But if you have somebody like a Donald Trump or like a J.D. Vance who refuses to acknowledge just basic facts, then how could you solve the problem? And this isn't hypothetical. We saw this with COVID and Donald Trump. What happened? COVID was coming. Democrats, scientific experts, other countries that were going through it, all sounded the alarm. They said, this thing is real. This thing is serious. This thing is going to spread like wildfire. So you all better prepare. And what did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump said, it's a hoax. It's the new Democratic hoax. This is their new hoax. I have that speech that he gave that time drilled into my head. This is their new hoax. We used it in a million videos. And then Donald Trump after that, even when there was even more information. And by the way, he already had the information prior to then. But even as he got more information, even as people started dying, it's not going to come to our shores. It's like a miracle. This thing's going to go away. This thing's going to be gone by Easter. We're going to pack the churches. We're going to have party. Everything's going to be great. Nope. Lie, 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 lie. A lot of us lost loved ones as a result of those lies. They're not just silly lies. They're not whatever. These are lies that kill people. These killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, these lies. And you cannot put a person who lies so brazenly and refuses to confront the actual issues that occur in our country. How could you trust somebody like that to run the country? They can't deny reality. They can't look outside and see a blue sky and say the sky is blue. How could you trust their vision on anything? Point blank. Donald Trump goes to a hurricane site for a stunt and diverts resources away from that site so that he could be protected and that he could do a photo op. And then he gets there and he goes, nobody knew this was going to happen. Is it even hurricane season? Nobody knew this could happen. And climate change, it's a hoax. Look, they're still pushing their hoax. They're still pushing their, people are dying again. And you're doing the same thing that you did with COVID. You're calling it a hoax. You are lying to people. You are mixing up lines of communication and you are spreading disinformation about the storm. You are spreading disinformation about the recovery efforts, which once again leads people to be getting killed. Those are all things that make you utterly unfit to be president. And it's clear that JD Vance views the world the same way. Deny reality, deny, deny, deny. I'm sorry, we can't have leaders who simply deny reality at every step of the way. You know, Ben today spoke with the FEMA spokesperson. Her name is Jacqueline Rothenberg. And Ben did a great interview with her because we wanted to get the facts. Because Donald keeps spreading BS. It's hard to tell what the truth is. And we saw online that folks were completely lying about what was going on the ground. They were lying about what we heard from people who were in North Carolina and in Georgia and from the governors in those states. And so we had the FEMA spokesperson on who gave us all the information, told us about all their efforts, and they told us this. I'll share something that they mentioned to me when I was speaking with them. They said that people, because they're getting fed lies by people on the right, because these lies are spreading, some people are scared in the disaster zones to even ask for help because they don't think it's available, thanks to lies spread by people like Donald Trump. It's me speaking right now. So if that's what you're doing, once again, it's like COVID. You are killing people if that's what you're doing. If you are spreading fake information, you are ultimately killing people. And we need candidates who accept reality. I see we got MeidasTouch co-founder Ben Meiselas back in here, fresh off the hot take. And Ben, we were just going through the candidates, and I was highlighting some of what I thought were the most damning moments. And I was speaking a bit about leadership here and the importance of leaders to, at their core, to be able to identify problems and accept reality. And with JD Vance, we saw him refuse to even acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the election and say he would certify an election. And this just follows the same pattern that we have seen from Trump and Vance, Trump over the last many years, Vance over the past couple of years, where they deny the problems that are before us. And it leads to tragedy. I was speaking about the hurricane. I was speaking about COVID and all the various things that they just continue to deny. And I think at the fundamental test tonight of leadership, at the fundamental test of the requirements of the job for VP, will you certify the election? I think that is where JD Vance completely failed, and proved himself to be completely unfit for the position. Jordy, I know you've been here and I've been speaking my head off. Did you want to add anything, or do you want to go to
I wanted to add this one moment because I think it ties this into a nice bow, Brett, what you were saying here. So going back to 2020, what did the right wing continue to do? They continued to attack experts, right? All of a sudden, the word expert became this negative thing for people on the right, and they've sort of bastardized the term expert. You fast forward 4 years later, and not much has changed from them. What's this about Vance? I know this moment might get looked over, and I hope it doesn't. What's this about Vance attacking experts, relying on experts, people that are at the top of their field, right? It's not Donald Trump that can save us, right? It's not one person as in Donald Trump, who can take us out of this? No, that's not what governing is. That's not how we function as a society. And I really hope that moment doesn't get lost. That attack on experts by this right-wing media is absolute lunacy to me.
And it's an attack we've
Jordy,
seen
that's
for. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm with you, Jordy, but you know that's way too smart even for me, right? At the end of the day, JD Vance refuses to say that Donald Trump lost in 2020. That's it. Like you can't pretend to be pseudo intellectual if you can't go and deal with that basic question. That is what is unprecedented in American history. This has never happened before, and that should be on the front cover of every major newspaper. It won't, but it should be. I mean, fortunately, more people watch this now than are watching corporate media. I don't need to have a panel of people try to normalize that. There's just nothing normal about that. I mean, we can get into JD Vance lied about everything. Oh, Donald Trump expanded the Affordable Care Act by trying to repeal it. Oh, what a ridiculous thing to say. And frankly, Governor Walz did not, I don't think, answered, I think Governor Walz could have been like, what are you talking about, JD? You're saying that he expanded the Affordable Care Act by trying to repeal it? Like, it makes no sense. I mean, I think you have to speak a little bit more like that, but don't overcomplicate this thing at all. Jordy, you're right, but the experts, this, that, no. JD Vance refuses to say that Donald Trump lost in 2020. That is the biggest loser mentality, and you can't accept that you lost in 2020. And the real question is censorship, because Facebook was saying that if you were saying Nazi stuff and if you were denying the existence of COVID and people were dying, that you couldn't say that you could get shadow banned temporarily. And that's what we really know. What are you even talking about, JD? The bottom line is that Donald Trump lost in 2020. And can we be clear? He got his ass kicked. Why is that so hard? He got his ass kicked. It wasn't a close election. It wasn't close. We're not talking about 2000 with Al Gore and George W. Bush, where there was 400 hanging chads, and whether the chad was officially punctured and therefore this person won or that person won. We weren't down to one state and 400 votes and hanging chads. That's not what we're talking about. Biden won the popular vote by more than 7 million. Biden won the Electoral College in an Electoral College wipeout. It was a wipeout. Go back historically. Rarely has someone kicked somebody's freaking ass the way Biden kicked Trump's pathetic loser ass. That's just the reality of what happened. So don't deny that. It wasn't close. We weren't talking about one little town in this county. What are we talking about here, people? And I think over the past 4 years, as we've grown this platform, to me, it always came back to that. And fortunately, at the end of this debate, that's what was being discussed, because what the hell are we talking about? You often see in my hot takes, I'll say that. I go, what are we talking about here? You've got Donald Trump saying, release the hostages, release the J6 hostages. Why weren't there questions asked about that? You're calling insurrectionists who tried to kill police officers and did kill a police officer and led to the deaths of others. You're saying that those people are hostages who have been unfairly treated and you want to pardon them. That's not even a question that comes up in a debate, and we're supposed to normalize that. You've got Donald Trump posting QAnon memes every single day saying that the FBI was the one who did January 6th, and we're supposed to, what are we even and the reality is that we, the corporate media right now, I'm sure on CNN and they've got their panels, and this side's going to yell at this side. I don't need to hear crap. I'll tell you freaking why.
It's the worst.
It is because that JD Vance refuses to simply say in 2024 that Donald Trump lost in 2020. 2020. It is ridiculously simple. And if you're an undecided voter and you're cool with a freaking loser mentality in 2024, claiming someone who got their ass kicked, like Donald Trump got his pathetic ass kicked like a freaking loser. And if you're saying in 2024 that guy won, guess what? You're not undecided. You're frankly a pathetic loser also, and you like pathetic losers. And we're at the United States of America, damn it. We're not a country of pathetic losers who whine like that in 2020. Oh, this was rigged. This was rigged. Like, wake up, people. Can I shake the computer? Wake the heck up. Okay, that last answer, that last response to me is a powerful, and by the way, I thought Governor Walz handled it well. I thought he won the debate on that moment. I still think he did, frankly, being blunt here, not a 10, maybe a 7.5 out of 10. If I'm being blunt, JD Vance's answer was like a 2, but like, you should have knocked that out of the park with the 10. And then on your closing argument, your closing statement, you should repeat that over and over again. Look, folks, obviously when you're a politician, this is how I would say it. Look, obviously, it's not a shock that we think about what we're going to say in our closing arguments. And I was going to talk about how Vice President Kamala Harris has had steady leadership, how she's got the experience needed. But I want to reflect on what JD Vance just did. He refused to say that Donald Trump lost in 2020 when Donald Trump lost big. That's disqualifying. And for the last 4 years, Donald Trump has not been campaigning. He's been whining. And aren't you sick and tired of the drama? Aren't you sick and tired of the crying? Aren't you sick and tired of behavior that you wouldn't tolerate with your children? It's the exact opposite of how you teach your children to be. So if your children shouldn't behave in a whiny, crying, pathetic way, why would you tolerate this? At the highest position, think about it. Where do you work? Small company, medium-sized company, large company, nonprofit, social clubs, fantasy football leagues that you may be a part of. If someone behaved like that, you would say, get out of here, you baby. What are you doing? So you're going to give the nuclear codes to that guy? To me, Governor Walz missed an opportunity to go that far, frankly, but I think he did very well at the end. And I think him asking that question should have been where we started. Where is Mike Pence? Where is Mike Pence? Ladies and gentlemen, where is Mike Pence? Oh, I know why we're here and JD Vance is here, because Donald Trump tried to have Mike Pence killed. Don't you think it's shocking that Donald Trump's former vice president isn't endorsing him? Don't you think that that's a little bit crazy? That's what I would do. But I think the point was made. I think that Vice President Kamala Harris's team, they've already clipped that, run that nationwide. You've raised $600 million. Put all $600 million in that for real. For real. Enough games, enough treating JD Vance like he's some normal thing. This guy is a freaking mutant who changes his views over and over again, and he refuses to make a basic statement that Donald Trump lost in 2020 in 2024. That's your Ben rant of the day.
Ben, tell us how you really feel. All right. No, that was good stuff. I'm going to read you some of the comments that came in during the Ben rant. Deborah said, Ben is on one, crying, laughing emoji. And somebody says, Ben after dark, go, with some applause emojis. Ben, we got Dark Ben tonight, bringing back Dark Brandon. It's pretty good stuff. But Ben, in all seriousness, I agree with everything that you're saying there. And to reiterate, like when you are running for vice president of the United States, the job interview question that you must answer, the job interview question that is the only relevant question on the job, is will you certify the results of the election? Period. Full stop. End of story. Quite frankly, nothing else really matters. And JD Vance had an opportunity to answer that question, and he refused. He failed the one and only test the one and only qualification needed for this job, he failed. Completely failed. Completely failed. So I agree, Ben, that moment needs to be absolutely blasted everywhere. Do I think that Tim Walz was probably a little bit too much Mr. Nice Guy and cordial and was kind of treating Vance like he was like a normal political figure? Yes, but that's him. Debates aren't his thing. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback and say, I wish you did this, wish you did that. But, I agree. I generally agree with that. Also, some of the Walz's best moments also has been when he's incorporated humor and, in his various speeches. And I think, he was more serious today, which I get. It's a big moment, but I think being a little more biting in those situations certainly helps. But going back to it, the ultimate thing, the one thing that really matters, the one takeaway from this debate is certainly that moment that needs to continue to be shared far and wide, where JD Vance showed that he is completely incapable of doing the job. We're getting reports now. This is also shows you the differences between the character of the candidates, and I think character matters. But Tim Walz, after that debate, where did he run? Tim Walz is now getting a slice of pizza in New York with his wife. That's how he's spending post-debate. Where did JD Vance go to? Sean Hannity to the spin room, and he's doing interviews with Sean Hannity on Fox. I think that kind of speaks volumes about the.
He's got to do damage control. I mean, he has to do damage control. After
there
that.
it is. There it is. Ian Sams, who works with the Vice President Harris campaign, wrote post-debate plans. Walz, go get a New York slice. Vance, go on a Hannity. And you could see Tim Walz and his wife, Gwen, right there. But, I will say that the important thing in all these debates also is the substance of what you're saying. And I'm going to contradict myself a little, because your ability to convey a message, your slickness, I think that certainly is important in reaching the kind of, maybe of the voter who's not as tuned in. But when you get down to the core of what these debates are supposed to be about, it should be about substance. It should be about what are you saying? And if we go down the line of the things that Vance said throughout that debate, I think he failed on substance, question after question after question, because he lied. He lied. Now, I think Walz could have been more effective in combating some of these lies. And I think he did a good job at certain points, like on energy. Vance at the end, like in his closing, was like, we didn't talk about energy tonight. It's like, yeah, you did. I took notes on it. But there was the moment where Vance kept going back to certain things that were also facts that weren't, these were facts that weren't debatable things. Like he would say that America needs more energy production when America currently has the most energy production we've ever had, and are energy independent for the first time. Trump liked to say that all the time. It was never true. We actually are now, and have the most clean energy that we've ever had in the country. And Walz would make numerous insane claims, especially on the issue of abortion and the issue of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, saying that Trump was actually responsible for saving it when he tried to actually repeal it at least 2 times, and says to this day that he wants to get rid of it. Like the hypocrisy on those answers, the blatant lying through your teeth. I think on an answer basis shows that Vance loses on the content. Now, as far as the pushback and the showmanship and things like that, I think when you apply all that, it's a bit of a mixed story there. But I want to specify my thoughts on the content of the answers and make clear how JD Vance lied and lied and lied and lied. But ultimately, everything I saw in the beginning of the debate, quite frankly, like it's hard for me to remember a lot of the moments, because that final moment of the debate is really what is in my mind and seared in my mind. And to me is what is just the most impactful moment that people should be talking about.
One of the funny things I'm seeing in the chat, that they're like, all right, Ben needs to chill. Ben needs yoga. Ben needs a little bit of a breather. So I'm going to
no chill.
So
this is after dark. I just had some sushi. I'm 4 coffees in. Things are getting things. I do want to remind everybody though about MeidasPlus.com that we just launched. That's the new MeidasTouch Substack. And I think it's off to a great start. So our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, has broken some incredible stories, probably more stories he's broken this election cycle than anyone. One of the criticisms I'm putting it delicately, that people have about our normal news site is that there are a ton of ads on it. And so people said, can you give us an ad-free experience? We'll be members of something. Just can you give us an ad-free experience? And so the folks at Substack approached us, and thus MeidasPlus.com was born. We have exclusive content there, but it's also like a great platform too, where Ron Filipkowski is interacting with people on a kind of more direct basis. Everybody loves Ron. Ron's the greatest editor in chief, around right now. But MeidasPlus.com, become a member there. Check out some of the exclusive stories we have there. We have the free versions at MeidasNews.com, but there are, ads there as well. We're still going to keep both. Don't you worry.
And by the way, there are free stories you get on MeidasPlus.com also. Some things will be paid with, and there's a lot of free stuff there. So consider subscribing to that, even if you want to do a free tier, and then you could always upgrade later. But it's been really
links
cool.
In the description right now of this YouTube video. So just go on over and hit that. But thank you.
Also, don't forget store. Yeah, it's right there. Store.MeidasTouch.com. Get your pro-democracy gear. I think Brett want to flip some of the gear up that's kind of relevant to today's show right there. Take a look at some of the gear below. Store.MeidasTouch.com. 100% union made, 100% made in the USA. There you are. Mind your own damn business shirt. That's a good one right there. Store.MeidasTouch.com. We're dropping a hot take that I just did in the past 15 minutes or so while Brett and Jordy were holding down the fort. So everybody check out that. I do a debate recap that I just finished that we're going to put on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is free. It's growing. We passed 3 million subscribers. I want to try to get to 4 million subscribers in this next month. That's our goal. Share this network with friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, whoever. Let them all know about that. Yes, that's if you hear in the background, that is the baby you may be hearing in the background.
Wow,
right there.
her
I was deciding
MeidasTouch Network debut.
Making the debut live, doing the hot takes, and Jimena's doing an incredible job live on air. And thank you.
She heard Ben fired up, right? She
heard Ben fired up, and she said, Ben, she said, you need to do yoga. You need to come see me. You need to come hold me. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that right now. I want to send my best to everyone. Check out the hot take. It's about to launch on this channel. Let other people know about this network. We need to keep growing this together. And this is a community-powered network. This is the network you've built. We're going to keep doing our part to be messengers on the show. But this is your network. Let's grow it together. Thank you, everybody. On my end, thank you all, Meidas Mighty. Brett and Jordy, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to go see Jimena.
Tell her we say hello. Send our love. The new dad, everybody. The new dad, MeidasTouch co-founder Ben Meiselas, the new dad in action, doing his daddy duties. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody also. And in terms of this being your network and you helping, thank you. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for continuing to get the message out there. And there are other ways that you could help as well. And certain ways are like you can subscribe to the channel. And here's something that a lot of you probably even don't realize. When you subscribe, there's a notification bell that appears next to the subscription button. If you hit that, you'll actually be notified when we post videos, which is cool. When you see new videos from us post, watching them obviously helps. Hitting the thumbs up button helps. Leaving comments, it helps. It basically tells YouTube you like this, and I think other people are going to like it. So it continues to spread the word. So make sure you do that. The MeidasTouch podcast, it's on audio. Anywhere you get audio podcasts, we'll put these takes on the MeidasTouch audio podcast so that you could listen to them when you're driving, when you're at work, whatever. You don't always have to watch. We put a lot of these hot takes on. Go to the MeidasTouch podcast, and just like YouTube, leaving a 5-star review really helps, and adding the show really helps, and sharing it with friends all really helps. Remember to check out our VP Harris merch, our Tim Walz merch, our Childless Cat Lady merch, all the gear at store.MeidasTouch.com. We have limited quantities remaining between now and the election, honestly. So pick yours up before they sell out, because we probably won't re-up a lot of them, quite frankly, after that. And, on that note, thank you for watching our coverage here at the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for all the support that he given Ben while he was off, and welcoming a new member of the family here. Thank you for all the support you've given me as I take over some of these hot takes, and
Doing great,
Jordy, who is holding down the Instagram and TikTok and all that. Thanks to our moderators here at MeidasTouch.
Shout out,
please give a shout out to the moderators in the chat. Our moderators are so great. Midas, Lisa, all the people who mod, make this chat a safe experience for everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you to the MeidasTouch Network team. Thank you to Salty. Thank you to Jeremy, Sydney, Hayden, Ron Filipkowski, Ace, and our entire editorial staff. We cannot do all of this without you. We couldn't do any of this without all of them and without all of you. So thank you so much. All right, Jordy, I think that is it for tonight. Here's what I want you all to do watching. There are 20-something thousand of you watching. Go ahead, check out our new video. Check out Ben's hot take when it hits the channel. Go watch it. Leave a comment. It's up. Okay, go right now. What are you watching us?
Go,
Jordy. I'll let you take us out.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
So this is really who Donald Trump chose as his running mate?
I never liked him. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. Liked him.
The Meidas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever they go wrong. The Meidas Mighty standing strong. We're here to fight the good fight and set the record straight. There's no two sides to treason. There's no two sides to hate. We will look for the silver lining in the darkest clouds. But remember, truth is golden. So come on and sing it loud. The Meidas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever they go wrong. The Meidas Mighty standing strong. The radicals won't stand a chance. We'll just shout it down. Inspire a generation to rise up and vote them out. We will look for the silver lining in the darkest clouds. But remember, truth is golden. So come on and sing it loud. The Meidas Mighty standing strong. The Meidas Mighty standing strong. We will get it right whenever they go wrong. The Meidas Mighty standing strong.